I told Ashley when we first watched this show, this was the show that took HyungSik from like my top 25 into my top 5. He just takes charge so well and brings this energy to the character. It perfectly blends his goofy romantic charm and his quirky sort of sense of humor with like the seriousness of real life. Yeah. So I don't know. I just got a whole new Woman Crush Wednesday on Park HyungSik after watching this the first time. Yeah.
She grabs whatever, like a syringe, just goes and just stabs the guy, and they're like, you can't actually do that for real. Corporal Lee is just like, he's wearing this imitate.
It's like a prosthetic, yeah.
And he's like, they made this because of you.
Like, it's your fault.
You almost killed someone. Tells his friend, he says, I need your help. He's like, because you know about drugs. And his friend's just like, it was one time.
You're now Walter White.
Yep. Okay. Welcome to the KDrama Show with Ashley and Kim.
That's Ashley.
That's Kim. We're here to recap and relive our favorite moments of episode 1, Happiness, with you, our listeners.
We're going to jump right in. So if you have not yet, make sure that you've watched this episode before you join us back here on our podcast so we can talk about it together. So without further ado, let's jump into it.
Welcome to the KDrama Show. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Kim.
We're here to unpack your all-time favorite Korean dramas and chat about all the reasons that we find these shows so charming.
And so addictive. And we know you do too, so settle in with some ramen and a boba tea while we dive into the KDrama Show with Ashley and Kim.
Make sure you are following us on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and Amazon Music. I'm going to be starting to put more polls out there, but they are only on Spotify, so make sure you are on Spotify to answer those polls. Give us a like, drop a comment. Yeah.
All right. Do you have our main cast for us?
I do. So there are so many people in this show. Well, I have three like main ones, and then I just have the names. I don't have like what they've done because the list is so extensive. Yeah. But it will be helpful to at least have heard the names once. So our main male lead is Jung Yi-hyung, played by our favorite Park HyungSik. We've talked about him twice now. This will be our third time with him in a show, so clearly we love him.
What was the first one?
We did Dr. Slump.
Oh,
we did Buried Hearts, which is out now. And then now Happiness. So he is known for Hwarang, Strong Woman Do Bong Soon, Happiness, The Heirs, Suits, The Juror, Soundtrack Number 1, Our Blooming Youth, Treasure Island, 9, In the Soup Friendship Trip, Real Men, and his latest drama is 12, which I believe is still releasing on Disney Plus. But I think
is it finally out?
Yeah, I think there's at least 2 episodes out. There might be 4 now. I haven't checked in a minute. Next we have Yoon and SaeBom. She is played by Han HyoJoo. She is known for Iljime, Blood Free, W, the Unfinished Story, Moving, Brilliant Legacy, Treadstone, Hometown Flex, Dongyi, and Happiness. I know her from Iljime.
I don't think I have seen her in anything else.
And then our final, super important character is Han TaeSeok, and he is played by Joo Bo-jin. He is known for Secret Door, My Little Old Boy, Squad 38, War of the Arrows, 1987, When the Day Comes, Mr. Sunshine, The Fortress, Goblin, he was our favorite secretary, Hero, Kingmaker, Happiness, The Match, Harbin, Gangnam B-Side, and Narco Saints. So we have Kim Jong-guk, who is the detective, played by Lee Jun-hyuk. Next we have Jisoo, played by Park Joo-hee. Then we have Jo Ji-hee, played by Lee Ji-ha. Na Hyung-kyung, played by Park Hee-bon. Woo Sang-hee, played by Moon Yi-won. Go Se-kyu by Kim Young-moon. Son Woo-chang by Cha Sun-bae. Kim Sung-bom, played by Jung Jong-hyuk. Shin Soo-yeon by Jung Woo-sun. And Park Seo-hyun, who's the little girl, played by Song Ji-woo.
She's so cute.
She is so cute, and I needed the differentiation because the last 2 names are very similar.
Topic number 1 is called The Harder the Fall.
Quick PSA.
Oh.
This is categorized as thriller horror. on Netflix.
Yeah.
There are some jump scares. It is basically a zombie show. So if it's not your cup of tea, join us for the next season, or check out all of our other content. We have a lot of good stuff out there.
So topic number 1 is called The Harder the Fall. So we open with a police car that is rushing to a high school. And there's a big banner above it that says YiHyun. There's a big banner above the gate that has a photo of YiHyun, our main lead. And he's dressed up in his baseball uniform, and then spray painted over it in red is he's doomed. So we see a team of people holding they're unfolding like one of those big
mattresses.
Airbag was the word I was looking for. Holy moly. I'm sorry. But below there's a team of people that are trying to unfold this airbag. This team of people that's trying to unfold an airbag. I'm sweating. There's a team of people trying to unfold this airbag below the building as YiHyun is like dangling his feet over the edge and just kind of watching everything unfold. And Detective Jungkook is on the ground, and he's got one of those
megaphone.
Thank you.
I'm gonna blame my sister's coffee.
Work. What was I saying? Oh yeah, he's yelling up at YiHyun with the megaphone, and we see in class that our main female lead, SaeBom, she's waking up from a nap, and she just seems really kind of irritated that something disturbed her sleep, and she looks out the window and sees YiHyun is up on the rooftop across the way, and her teacher is kind of getting on her case for not paying attention about anything. But then she's like, yeah, okay. She kind of lays her head down, thinks about it for a second, and then she just hops up out of her seat and goes, I'm going to go use the bathroom, and leaves. Mm-hmm. But we see that Jungkook now is tethered to the rooftop trying to speak with YiHyun. And SaeBom just kind of pushes past all of the officers that are around the doorway, saying, I have a friend up there, and I'm going to go help him get down. So she goes up on the roof, and she climbs up on the edge, and she's freaking out Jungkook because he's like, great, now I got 2 kids that are going to throw themselves off of this building, and so much paperwork. But
True.
She starts to yell at YiHyun that, hey, like, we all want to go home, and we can't until you get down, so can you just either jump or climb off? And so he's like, I'm not suicidal. I just wanted to come up here and look at some stuff, and somebody freaked out and called the police. And so now I'm just kind of enjoying watching them all scramble while I sit here and contemplate my life. But they kind of start to have this little bit of a heart-to-heart where they talk about his life is, as he knows it, is over because he can't play baseball anymore because he injured his knee. And he just feels really uncertain about the future now. And SaeBom kind of is like, you know, I can relate to this because I spent 2 years of my life in a hospital bed, and my future seemed really uncertain as well. And then he asks her that since she seems to be so judgmental about what he's doing with his life, he's like, well, what are you going to be when you grow up? And she's like, well, you know, last week I wanted to be a nurse, but now maybe I'm thinking I'll go into public service. And or she says, you know, the future is unlimited for us. We can be anything. Our lives are not over. We're still in high school. And she stands up to leave and holds out her hand to him, and he kind of scoffs at her, but he takes it. And they kind of have this moment where they're just looking into each other's eyes really deeply, and he's completely disarmed as she just sticks her hand on his shoulder and shoves him backward off of the roof onto the airbag below. Much to Jungkook's horror, he's just staring at her like, did you just murder your classmate in front of me?
In front of everyone.
In front of everyone in the world, and yeah. Down on the ground, we see YiHyun. He has made it down safely, and he's getting his injuries treated as SaeBom is escorted in handcuffs by Jungkook because, you know, you can't just push people off buildings.
It's kind of a bad thing to do.
Yes, wouldn't recommend. But as she begs YiHyun to let her off the hook, he's just like, do you want a date? That's healthy. All right, that brings us into topic number 2, which is called training exercise.
Which, can I just point out?
Yes.
My favorite thing that you've said was like, we couldn't keep it together over you trying to figure out how to say they're unfolding the airbag.
Yeah.
And then you have him, he's sitting up there just watching everything unfold.
I know, I got it, but I was like, I can't stop because if I do,
I had to wait till you were done.
We're never gonna get through this.
At least waiting until you were
I
done with it.
thought it as I said it, and so
It brought me such joy. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So fast forward 12 years, and we see that there is a SWAT team in a building, and there's a soldier that's being carried into a room, and one of the guys in there is like taking a drink of water as these soldiers come in, or SWAT team members come in, and she's like, he's injured, you need to help him. And so he starts panicking of like, okay, well, it looks like he's trying to assess all the vitals. And she's like, well, don't just stand there. Like, you need to do something here. And he makes his move, and she goes, dang, you just killed him. So this has all been a training exercise. And it's actually SaeBom, who is one of the, like, people training everyone else. She helps lead all of these these trainings. And we get a flashback to when she was a recruit, and one of this, it's the same drill, somebody's brought in, and she doesn't even hesitate. She grabs whatever, like a syringe, because it's supposed to be like a pneumothorax, and so she just goes in and just stabs the guy, and they're like, you can't actually do that for real. And her coworker, Corporal Lee, is just like, he's wearing this vest thing that's like supposed to imitate.
It's like a prosthetic, yeah.
And he's like, they made this because of you.
Like, this is your fault.
You almost killed someone. But she's very, very good at thinking on her feet. She's very quick. Mm-hmm. But they both kind of joke of like, things have improved so much since the early days of when they started. But they are part of the Special Operations Unit, so the SOU.
Topic number 3 is called Twilight Zone. So we've cut to a roach motel where we can hear this slamming sound against one of the doors. And the guy who's working the front desk gets a call from somebody who's complaining about the noise. And so he decides to go investigate. And he kind of creeps along, and he goes and knocks. And he says, hey, is somebody there? And you just hear this thud. Thud. And he's like, okay, that's super weird. Mm-hmm. And he decides, since he's not getting a response, but he can hear someone inside, he's going to unlock the door, right? And before we can really assess what's happening, the door just opens, and we see him get yanked inside, and the door slams back shut again. So YiHyun has arrived at the crime scene, and he's, like, dressed out in his baseball uniform. And as they enter the room, there is just, like, this violent spattering of blood all over the walls, all over the floor. Things are kind of disheveled. And the motel employee has been covered with a bloodied sheet on the ground. And then they observe that he appears to have a neck injury from a blunt object. And the thing that's really strange is that it wasn't the forensics team that actually covered up the body. It was like that when they walked in. But as YiHyun is looking around, he spots some empty water bottles, and then he asks Jungkook if they have a CCTV of the perpetrator leaving the room, but they don't have anything, right, which is really strange. So YiHyun is looking in the bathroom and the closets, and then he goes and peeks under the bed, and Jungkook's giving him a hard time, like, don't you think, like, what kind of perpetrator does this and then just hides in the closet?
Well, and he calls him, like, reckless but lucky.
Yeah, right. Well, we figure out just how lucky because he looks under the bed and very calmly asks the man to exit the bed in such a way that Jungkook is like, why are you messing around with me right now? And then Jungkook looks underneath and screams because there's this bloodied man hanging out under the bed. And they begin to interrogate him as he sits on the bed, and he's very calm, almost kind of like numb to the scenario. Mm-hmm. His ID identifies him as Sung Woo-jae, and he doesn't remember the murder, and he covered up the body because it had frightened him when he came to his senses. But he says that he had had a dream about the murder. They begin to question him about the weapon, and he just kind of offhandedly says, I was just really thirsty for some reason. And YiHyun gets this look on his face and opens up his mouth and realizes that the blunt object that had stabbed the man in the neck was actually his teeth. It's nice. That brings us into topic 4, which is called Not What They Seem.
So we're back with SaeBom, and she's getting lunch with Corporal Lee. And you know, she is a girl after our own heart. You know, they're going through and she's like, can I have some more? And they're like, he just hits the sign and it's like 1 serving per person.
I love how her pile of rice is like this.
And as they're eating, she gets an email or a message talking about housing for police officers who have met certain requirements. Like you have to have a certain amount of points, you have to have certain like evaluations from your superiors, and one of the best ways to have the best chance is to also be a newlywed. And she's like, I have a plan. I have really good points. There's like absolutely no reason for me to be denied this. Mm-hmm. And we cut back to YiHyun, and he is putting the culprit in the can. It's supposed to be car.
In Slamma.
In the Slamma. So yeah, YiHyun.
I just realized can is also toilet. It's fine.
Why are we better at this at nighttime?
Seriously, though, we're both night owls.
Okay, so YiHyun and Jungkook are putting this guy in the car to take him to the station.
I'm sorry.
And he calls SaeBom, and back where she is, it comes up on her phone as, I am his lifesaver. But he's calling to let her know that her team was mentioned in his current investigation. The guy that he's just arrested mentioned that he had bought drugs, and he had bought drugs from one of her trainees. And he's like, I'm letting you know, you guys are going to get contacted because we need to talk to your subordinate now of where did he get this? And you can't tell me that you didn't do it because like there's something going on here. Like this is crazy. Mm-hmm. And she's like, all right, I'll look into it. And she looks at Corporal Lee and she goes, if anyone touches my food, they die. You watch this for me. And she goes up into that training room where they had brought in Corporal Lee earlier during the exercise. And she's like kind of peeking through the window and she's like, what is happening? And Corporal Lee comes up behind her and they're just like, what are they doing? Because one of the trainees is laying on top of the other and they're like, this is not time, place, or anything that should be going on right now. And so they open the door and they're like, hey, what are you doing? And the trainee like jumps up and he bends backwards and he has wide eyes and a very bloody mouth, and he had been eating the other guy's neck. And so it turns into a very large brawl of survival, of pulling the other trainee out and trying to not let him attack any of them. And it ends up where SaeBom ends up having to shoot him in the leg and then the other leg because he does not stop. He does not feel pain. And when she gets out and they close the door, he is like banging his head against the window, trying his hardest. And then out of nowhere, he just collapses and starts screaming in pain, asking for help.
That brings us into topic 5, which is called Infected. So after this really unsettling encounter in the training room, SaeBom is in the bathroom trying to wash the blood off of her hands. And she calls Jihyun like, what the heck, man? You didn't tell me that people are going to be this violent, or that my life was going to be in danger. And he's actually shocked when he hears that even bullets aren't stopping these people who are going kind of feral. And he asked if this man had tried to bite anyone. And SaeBom, as she's listening, she kind of checks out and notices in the mirror that she has like a scratch on her hand. And YiHyun is like, come on, I need more information. Tell me what's happening right now. As they're having this conversation on the phone, there's a team that has arrived in heavy gear. They have respirators on. They have full PPE from head to toe, looking very militaristic and quite well prepared for this like exact scenario. And they're led by this man named Han TaeSeok. And they whisk Jung-tae away on a stretcher with a bite guard on his face, saying that he potentially has an infectious disease. Welder. As they corner SaeBom in the bathroom, YiHyun's on the phone asking, like, hey, what's happening? And the man, TaeSeok, requests her gun and her cooperation as they escort her from the premises. But Seung-young, Corporal Lee, asks, as they're leaving, asks what's happening. But TaeSeok just says, what transpired this day needs to be kept quiet. You don't need to talk about anyone. You don't need to talk to anyone about what's happening. We're getting it handled. And then YiHyun calls SaeBom back and demands to know what's happening. Well, TaeSeok answers and says, I gotta go. It's not your business. But YiHyun's like, hey, this relates to an investigation that's under my jurisdiction. I need to know what's happening. And TaeSeok asks where he works, and he says, I'm going to visit you at Saeyoung Station shortly, because he knows that there's another person that is exhibiting symptoms. So when YiHyun asks if people should be isolating from one another to prevent the spread of this infectious disease, and you have to remember this was made in 2021, which is still technically the height of COVID-19, and the situation in Korea was very strict.
Yep.
And you can even see that in some of the ways that they filmed. Like, for instance, when they're at the lunch table talking, Corporal Lee and SaeBom, they have the plastic dividers.
Guards,
Everyone's wearing masks inside. So it was very interesting that this was
filmed so quickly.
How they portrayed the anyway. But TaeSeok says that as long as no one's been bitten or scratched, then the disease won't be transferred to other people and they remain safe. So at the police station, TaeSeok, Jungkook, and YiHyun have all sat down to kind of talk about this mystery infection, which makes people bite others, and it's a mutant virus that affects the brain, and when infected, you either bleed out or begin to show signs of violence. And then YiHyun reveals that drugs seem to be an implicating factor, and possibly it's maybe a hallucinogenic issue and not a viral one. And TaeSeok is like, okay, well, where's the drug if you have it? And YiHyun's like, well, we don't. Mm-hmm. And as they part ways, TaeSeok asks if he's still playing baseball and kind of gives him like this coy look. But YiHyun knows now that he has a lead with this drug, and he kind of starts to make calls. But that brings us into topic 6, which is called the simple answer.
So YiHyun has gone back to the hotel, and he's doing his job, and he's doing it well. What was hilarious is the cleaning lady has just like kind of started her job of tidying everything up, and she's just watching him tear apart everything that she has just done.
I've never felt so seen in my life as a toddler mom.
Like, I mean, he's in the bathroom, he's checking inside the tank for the toilet, he's looking, but yeah, he's in between mattresses, like he is in the wardrobe, he's doing the Lord's work when it comes to searching for this drug. And he shakes out a blanket and he watches this pill fall out. But then at the same time as he's looking at this and putting it in a bag, he gets a call from Jungkook saying, the tests came back clean, there's nothing in his system, and YiHyun's like, there has to be so much more to this. And he goes to a batting cage building, and it's run by one of his friends who used to play baseball with him. And he comes in and he tells his friend, Ilho, he says, I need your help. He's like, because you know about drugs. And his friend's just like, it was one time. I already paid the price for this. And he's like, yeah, but you also know about sports meds. And like, I need your help with this. And so
you're now Walter White.
And his friend looks at the pill and he goes, well, I can tell you right now this is not a narcotic because there's a serial number on it. And if there's a serial number on it, it means it comes from a pharmaceutical company. Mm. And so he starts his search, and YiHyun's like, okay, well, I'm going to sleep. Wake me up when you find something. But we cut back to SaeBom, and she is getting every test possible, and some that we probably didn't even know were a possibility, run. Blood drawn. She gets like the skin from her scratch taken out. And TaeSeok walks in and she's like, am I gonna be okay? Like, am I gonna die? And he goes, well, first I need you to give me a statement. I need to know everything that happened, beginning to end. What did the trainee look like? How is he acting? Because, we don't know what it's looking like more. And she asks, you know, if it's, or I guess, I'm sorry, he asks if it was acting like he was on drugs or like he was sick. YiHyun is sleeping and he gets a call from SaeBom, and it's from an unknown number. So he's like, who is calling me right now? And when he answers, you know, and learns that it's SaeBom, he's like, awake, we're walking around, are you okay? Like, what is going on? Where are you? And she's like, don't worry, I'm fine. And he's like, don't worry, I took care of your mom. I told her that you were out of training. That's why she can't get a hold of you. And she's like, okay, good, because if you had said anything else, like, we were going to have some real issues. And he assures her that he's going to figure out what was going on, and he was going to do everything to make it right for her.
I thought the thing that was interesting about their interaction with TaeSeok and SaeBom was that she says, you don't think it could be a narcotics issue? And he goes, a police officer would think that. And he goes, it's viral. And she goes, well, the military pharmaceutical person would think that. So they're kind of like not in
Playing
agreement.
the game.
Yeah. That brings us to topic 7, which is called Interrogation. So as the night has gone on, SaeBom can hear like the shrieks of the other detainees throughout the ward. And as the camera pans away, we see that there are at least maybe 50 other patients that are symptomatic, all in their own isolated rooms and just kind of freaking out, walking really erratically like Jung had earlier. But YiHyun's friend has spent the entire night researching and has finally found the drug, and it's called Next, which is an ammonia cure that has really adverse side effects that actually got it pulled from the market. Mm-hmm. So it's already quite widespread, though, as an illegal drug, and it's pretty easily accessible. But we see back at the police station that YiHyun has had Jung track down a college student that was a known dealer of this particular drug. But SaeBom wakes up the next morning relieved that she doesn't have to go to work. She's just like living her best life because she hasn't had a day off in who knows how long. But Lieutenant Hyun wakes her. It's like Kyung-sung all over again. Lieutenant Hyun wakes her, saying that she needs to undergo additional tests. So SaeBom is escorted down the hall, and she's led past this open door, and she sees that Jung is inside, and asks if she can speak with him. But she's declined that, and so she just runs in and slams the door and barricades it. So she starts to interrogate him, asking, do you remember being shot? Do you remember what happened in the training room? Mm-hmm. And he's finally of sound mind, so he remembers being shot, but not the actual attacking and the biting of his colleague. And so then she asks him if he had taken a drug, and he denies having any involvement with any sort of drug dealing. But she shows him her scratch, and as she's talking about it, he sort of starts to slump forward in his wheelchair, right, because he got shot in the hip. He starts to, slump forward in his wheelchair. And then he asks really calmly for a drink of water because he's very thirsty. And Hyung outside the door is like, no, don't give him water. Mm-hmm. And Jung Tae's eyes kind of snap shut. And as SaeBom is speaking, she sort of moves closer and closer and closer until she's 6 inches from his face.
She's too close.
I'm like, dude, what are you
Stop.
doing? But his head snaps up and he has a fit and just attacks her again like he had his colleague in the training room. So the team finally breaks down the door and they restrain him with these metal bars and a cattle prod. Mm-hmm. And he just keeps cackling as he's saying, I'm so thirsty, I'm so thirsty. And SaeBom notices on the monitor over there that his vital signs show no spike. In fact, they're really good readings. His blood pressure and his heartbeat are extremely low for what's happening. Mm-hmm. And she notices that the cameras in the room are recording, and then she looks at one and goes, TaeSeok, are you there? That brings us into topic number 8, which is called Discharged.
So we cut back to YiHyun, and he had Jungkook trace the number that SaeBom had called him on to find out where she was. And so he's at the university where it's basically become a military compound at this point. And he shows his badge, and he's like, I would like to, I need to go in. And the officer's like, no, you don't get to do that. And he goes, yes, well, I have the drug that Lieutenant Colonel Han is waiting for so you need to let me in because we're working together right now. But then we see that SaeBom has made her way into TaeSeok's, his headquarters, his office. Mm-hmm. And she asks him, why did you make me meet Jung-tae on purpose? That was clearly set up. You even installed a camera. And he's like, I just needed to see when he'd feel thirsty and, what he would do. And then he purposely places a water bottle right next to her. And he tells her that when someone is infected, they lose their senses and bite people. They feel extreme thirst, and water is just not enough. And even going back to normal, they still feel thirsty, and he's just trying to figure out what the conditions are for it. And he was curious to see how Jung-tae was going to react when he saw her, because that's somebody he's not related to. Mm-hmm. And SaeBom tells him, well, that's not all. His heartbeat was slower, he felt no pain, and his wounds were healing really fast. And she calls it of saying, this is secretly being investigated considering how things have been, because you're trying not to scare people. You have the air conditioners on, or she asks why the air conditioners were on, and he tells her that it slows the occurrence of, the attacks when their temperature is low. So then she asks about the water that was put next to her, is this a test? And he tells her, well, actually, you're fine. Your results came out. You're good. So she goes, okay, well, then can I leave? Can I go home? He tells her that she can, but you have to say that you contributed to the nation, you got hurt in the process, and then you have to come and let us draw blood every 2 weeks so we can continue to test. You have no symptoms, so there's a potential of you having an antibody to whatever is going on. And so SaeBom tells him that she's like, well, I feel important, so I have one more thing I need from you. I need you to give me top points for my service so I have the highest chance of getting one of those apartments. And he tells her, I think that's possible. And she sticks her hand out, and he's like, I'm not going to shake your hand. She's like, no, I want my phone. I have people that I need to get in contact with. And he asks her if she has a boyfriend because, your points are great, but you don't have enough, even with my help. And she goes, the age difference is too much for me, but thanks.
It's not that kind of drama.
And he tells her, you need a plan. She goes, don't worry about it. And he reminds her that the world might collapse, especially after the last couple of days.
I think one of the really interesting comments he makes, and you almost miss it if you don't watch for it, is he says, this could be really lucrative if we figure out how to harness it. Mm-hmm. For military purposes or whatever, because they don't feel pain, because they're so strong and they outmatch normal humans. So,
comforting.
Yeah, leave it to the military. That brings us into topic 9. So as SaeBom is leaving the hospital, she says her farewell to Lieutenant Hyung, who is really glad to be rid of her. And she asks for her clothes back, but they've been burned. And then YiHyun has made it into the ward, and he sees SaeBom, and he runs over to her, and he's like, "Are you okay? You just disappeared." And she takes this opportunity to pretend to bite him, which is the second time she has pretended to bite someone in this facility. And Hyung just takes out her baton and goes, whew, and she gets ready to just
and it's
beat SaeBom.
Delayed.
I know. If something were actually happening, she would have been gonzo.
She's so cute.
I know. But as they walk away, SaeBom asks YiHyun if he's there because he's been bitten, but he's like, no, I'm just here on business. So he takes the pill to TaeSeok, who says, I think you're good enough to play baseball again. Which is a very strange thing to say. Or, why is he obsessed with his baseball career? But they kind of part after this really tense conversation about the pill being a pneumonia drug, and that the world kind of still hangs in the balance at this stage of things, where YiHyun's like, well, now we can move on, and TaeSeok's like, I wouldn't be so sure that this is the end of it. But SaeBom kind of watches YiHyun walking over to her, and she gets this brilliant idea in her mind. And she stands up and asks if he has a girlfriend, and this kind of catches him off guard, because this is not
their friendship at all.
Right. Not as This doesn't catch him off guard as much as her proposal, though, because we see them flash back to high school when she actually ended up rejecting his confession the night that she got arrested. And he sort of brushes it off as if he were joking with her back then. Like, oh, I wasn't being serious about it. And then she says, well, I'm being serious now. End of episode.
My favorite is she's going, do you grind your teeth? Do you snore? Do you have any, like, bad habits going on?
Before we walk into this thing that you have not yet agreed to, I need to know your deal breakers. Character of the hour.
This is so unfair. Disclaimer, we have both watched this show at least a couple times. I think I've watched it, like, at least 3 times.
I think this is my 3rd watch through.
So, like, this might be my 4th. So, like, I don't know. Probably SaeBom. Because she is so quick. She catches everything. And she makes people very uncomfortable with her ability to catch on to what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's why TaeSeok is just like, you know what? Yeah, I'll help you get your apartment. Like, that's fine. But also, like, I really hate that you're bringing these questions up, because how did you already figure that out? You've been in this situation for exactly less than 48 hours, and you already know as much as I do. And so she's just very, very enjoyable.
She's my character of the hour, too. I think she just keeps a really level head. And she's really good at putting on this front of not caring, but also taking in her surroundings and analyzing the situation very quickly. Like you said, she's very quick on her feet, and takes a really unconventional path to just very direct with everything. She doesn't want to waste time or mince words, and people don't know how to take her all the time, but she's just very good at her job.
Like when she was a recruit and immediately just went, nope, this is what I'm supposed to do, and they had to create a prosthetic.
Yep.
And that's without having all the knowledge. And that's just going, no, this is the next step.
Yeah. So I think she's my favorite just because she's fun to watch. And we aren't quite as attached to the other characters yet, I don't think. Final thoughts.
I remember watching this show for the first time because it was on Viki originally. It is now on Netflix. And I was immediately, like, in the scene. It was very easy to be like, okay, I'm in the story. It's not like a disconnect where you're just like, I don't know how I feel about this, because it's something we can all relate to because of the time frame that it was filmed and what was going on in the world at that point in time. So it was very just like, oh yeah, I could totally see that. And I don't know, it's a very if you've watched any of like utopia like shows or zombie shows or anything like that, like it's a very unique world to be in, but knowing that there's like just these other strings that can be pulled in it is just very fascinating already with episode 1 of like why are the cops and the SOU and the military, like why are we all of a sudden together, and it's been 15 minutes into the show.
Yeah, why are we all convening around the same hotspot?
Yeah.
I'm a music person. I love the soundtrack for this show. It is so good. From the opening credit to the, it's called Portrait by Layne, I think is his name.
Okay.
So good. Check out some of his other stuff. That's all I've been listening to this week. But like that bum, 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 like that piano song is so good. It just captures like these really weird tense moments.
It gives it the right feel.
It breathes life into certain scenes that might otherwise fall flat, and I just anyway, it's fine. I told Ashley when we first watched this show, this was the show that took HyungSik from like my top 25 into my top 5. Because this was the first really serious role I saw him in, where he just like takes charge so well and brings like this energy to the character. It perfectly blends his
Goofy.
Romantic charm and his quirky sort of sense of humor with like the seriousness of real life.
Yeah.
And just the way that he stepped up to this. And I think this was one of his first roles following his discharge from the military. And
Yeah,
so I
I
think
think so.
that he had brought some of his
Maturity.
real life experience
Yeah.
into this role when he took it on. So I just got a whole new Woman Crush Wednesday on Park Hyung-sik after watching this the first time.
Yeah. We already love him in this. Yeah.
I mean, I'd seen him in like Suits before, and Hwarang is a serious one, but this was just so different. He brought a different level of depth, I felt like, that I just hadn't quite seen before. So
Well, and like
I was very
maturity
excited about
and
it.
the seriousness is more believable. Stupid Siri, stop reacting to me.
It's a series.
Yeah, the Siri. Oh, now you don't do it, you jerk.
So yeah, that was episode 1. We're super excited about this show.
And it's very short. It's only 12 episodes.
only
They're
12.
only an hour long. Like,
So this is going to be how we're going to close out season 5, probably with not as many consolidated shows as we were doing previously. But look forward to season 6 when we review our next set of shows. So, all right, keep it next time.
Like what you're hearing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any new episodes. We'd love to connect with you on our Instagram at The KDrama Show. For more behind-the-scenes content, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. Links are in the show notes. Thanks for hanging out with us on The KDrama Show with Ashley and Kim, and we'll see you next time.